What's up, everybody? This is the Jedi. I first want to begin by once again welcoming all the new subscribers to the channel. I would love it if some of you would share with me how you became aware of my channel, how you came across it, whatever, because the influx of new people has been nothing short of astonishing to me. I'm deeply honored, and I really would like to know how people are finding me at this point, because it's just been that miraculous, really. That's the first thing. But welcome to all of you, and it is to your advantage to add a picture of yourself to your thumbnail, because while I've been surprised at the number of new people, I've been also disappointed by the number of people who don't have a personal picture of themselves up as their thumbnail, and I would love for you to do that. Secondly, I would love to say thank you to every single one of you who has been donating to the fund, the GoFundMe for Africa. The link is in the description box down below. Thank you guys all so much. And to Sharpie Pen, I almost fell over and choked on my own spit at your $200 donation. God bless you. I thank you so much. I've said to my people a million times, I am a simple man. I'm not someone who it takes a lot to impress me. I'm not a materialistic person. I'm not into stuff. And I am deeply grateful for the smallest thing in life. You know, I'm someone who I never pass a copper penny and not pick it up and give thanks to God. Because I know that that is a test and it's also a gift. You know, because if you would pass the copper penny, you're a hypocrite. If you would then bend down to pick up a $100 bill, but the punchline is there won't be a $100 bill. If you're not grateful for the little things, you don't get the big things in life, everybody. That's just the law of the universe. Is the law of the universe. Quick story for you before we get into the information. Years ago, I was known as Muazzin in my mosque. That is the keeper of the mosque. He is the most trusted person in the Islamic community. He is the one who makes the call to prayer. He is in on any and all affairs that surround and involve and have to do with the mosque. And everything goes through you. You take care of the mosque and all those things. You're the most trusted person. Your character is beyond reproach. That's why I always say to you guys that my character is beyond reproach. I'm an honest man. I'm an honest man. That's the only thing that matters to me on the earth is the truth. That's why I say it so much. Because it's everything to me. It's water. It's food. It's greater than that even. Truth and righteousness are the most important things to me on the planet. That's it. That's it. But I go on to say, so I was sitting in the mosque one day with some of my brothers, and my sister, who had been without a car for a very long time, years, and she, at that time, she had, well, I think she already had 2 kids at that point, but she's got to go to work on the bus, she's got to put one kid on a bus, and she's got to get the other one to daycare. I mean, it was just, she was Wonder Woman. And then she ended up getting a car, but it had issues, you know, and she was complaining that it smelled like gasoline and this and that, and So she calls me up one day, I'm in the mosque, and she's ranting about this car that she has now gotten after many years of walking and being on the bus and having to take several buses and put the kid on another bus and all the other stuff. And I stopped her. And I said, hear me now. How dare you? I said, how many years did you walk and ride the bus and you got to go put the kids on one bus, and you got to get on another bus, and and you would now complain? I told her, you need to go and make shukr rakats. These are special prayers and prostrations that you do in thankfulness. It's shukr, is thankfulness in Arabic. I said, you need to go and make shukr rakats and give thanks and praise to the divine for that damn car. And you treat it like it's a stretch limo, and you keep it clean. And every time you get in there, you turn the crank, you say Allahu Akbar. Because if you don't do that, you don't get another car. You don't. Well, 2 weeks later, she had a brand new car. And so there's a lesson there, that we have to be grateful for the small things in life. That's why I've said to you, someone that donates $1 is just as precious as to someone who donates $100 or $200 or $1,000 or $10,000. It is the same thing to me. But more than that, it is the same thing to the Maker. Because God tells us as mankind that any act of kindness that you give of yourself, anything that you give of yourself, doesn't have to be money. Anything, hear this, anything that you give of yourself freely, expecting nothing in return and no recognition, is the highest charity you could ever offer. The highest. And there is great reward in that from the divine. Now, that's not from me, that's from the divine. So I say thank you to all of you who have donated and will donate to the GoFundMe. I thank you so much. I'm doing this, everybody. I actually started producing this a couple of weeks ago, and I hated it. It got too rantus, and I just didn't like where I was going, and it didn't feel like it was authentic. It didn't feel like it was the inspiration, and the universe said, stop it, stop it. So I did. But my intention of why I was intending to bring this is the same then as it is now. Because my intention is to show in just a small way that this case represents many hundreds of thousands of cases of African men specifically, but women too. But specifically African men who the system has and continues to throw away because of their devaluation and disdain for black life. We're still on the heels of dealing with the case of the murder by that white savage beast racist bitch of Botham Jean. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. And I wanted to bring this to show contrast, history, context, consistency, and evil intention by this enemy. Now, this is a case from the 1980s, but you could pick your year from the 1400s to 2018. You could just pick your year. Just pick a year, whatever you feel like. Just spin a bottle. And you will find the specific hatred and demonizing, incarceration and murder of African men specifically. And so I thought, in the shadow of now the ongoing case of Botham Jean, it would be appropriate to bring this case of Kevin Cooper. Now, this brother is not an angel, but you know what? He is an angel, and I'm going to tell you why. And any brother that we're going to see on a rap sheet is an angel. Is an angel. Damn it, is an angel. I said it. And I'm going to back that up. Jedi, why is this person an angel? Why would you say this thing? Well, I'll tell you. Because all of our history shows that African people are not inclined to violence. We're not inclined to deception, evil, and things really not of the divine. We're not inclined of that. And where we find that, we find white influence, white history. This is what we find. In a society where a black man can be stopped for simply walking down the street, simply sitting, can be murdered for simply sitting in his living room in his own house, locked door, we see a mutation to adapt to the society. If you're in a land that is based on righteousness and fairness and not greed, status, and class, then the citizenry and the powers that be make sure that everybody has. So there's no inclination to prey upon your neighbor. What is going on? What the hell? Troubleshoot and help prevent computer problems. Cancel. I can't do this right now. Find and fix problems. Why are you stressing my life right now? I'm in the middle of something deep. Damn it. Got to reestablish the flow now. Got to reestablish the flow. Wisdom comes in silence, everybody. It comes in silence and uninterruption. You understand? When I record my videos, I am alone, without distraction, so that the energy can just flow over me, and whatever's going to come out of me, then that's what comes. You understand? So I digress. Kill everybody. I can't. Okay, let me try again. Now that I've killed everything that needs to be killed. Man. Subhanallah. But as I was going to think I was going to say, so the environment can influence and dictate and inform what the behavior of an individual will be and can be. You know, an example, I'm not a violent man, but I've had some fights in my life that I finished. Don't start none, won't be none. You started, I'm gonna finish it. So that I was provoked to violence. Provoked. When you have a society that glamorizes materialistic things and stuff, the latest this and the latest that, and you see the haves with all their opulence and ease of life, or so it seems at least. If you are a lesser person, you begin to think, I'm supposed to have that. I'm supposed to have that. Now desperation kicks in. I will have that. More desperation. I'm going to get that. And then you act. Now you're out stealing the, 2018 Mercedes, and you're breaking into the, jewelry store, and you're doing it all. And you're at the bank with a heist But you would not be inclined to that if you lived in a society that shared its wealth with its citizenry. I cite for you my Muslim brother, Sheikh Muammar Gaddafi. May Allah rest his soul, blot out his sins, and allow him to enter the paradise. Give him space and light in his grave, and have mercy on his soul. May he forever be remembered as a king. They have you thinking Gaddafi was this tyrant, dictator. And of course they always have to add, who's murdering their own people. Well, Libya was a disaster area because of white America for many, many years, and through puppet governments and so forth. But alas. And why? Because they have oil. And you know the white man ain't no place where ain't shit he can steal. I didn't say trade. I didn't say barter or buy or negotiate. I said steal. I said steal. Understand? But then now Gaddafi rises to power. General Muammar Gaddafi. And he is a man of pure heart, a Muslim. And he first proclaimed that he would liberate Libya. And he said that his parents would not have a home until every Libyan had a home. And he set about the business of doing that. Because before him, people were in tents and God knows what. And he built Libya up to be a powerful, oil-rich metropolis. He got the tribes to join together. And he put Libyans in government-paid-for apartments. No such thing as rent in Libya. No such thing as utilities and lights and gas and water and rent and all the bullshit. They don't have any idea what that means. And their national resource, their greatest national resource, is their oil. And he shares the profits amongst his people. Now, what need would a Libyan have to go out and take the flat screen of their neighbor? Or they're breaking in down at the Mercedes dealer. You see? Because, oh, by the way, when you buy a new car, the government pays for 50% of the cost of that car for you. You only need to come up with half. You only need to come up with half. And when you get married, they give you $65,000 towards a house. And $7,000 for every child that you bear. I ask you, where would be the Kevin Cooper in a society that is Libya? In a society that promotes fairness amongst all mankind, where there is no such thing as tax, because that's usury and that's against God. Where there is no interest, because that's usury and that's against God. It's known in Islam as bid'ah or riba. You're not allowed that. Think how much money you would have left on your paycheck every fucking week if you didn't have all these unknown entities in your shit. You could save your own goddamn Social Security plan. God damn it. And so forth. So this brother is an angel because he lives in a society where he has been put in projects and ghettos and sequestered areas to keep the information and the education low. So his animalistic instincts come forth to premier. And that is what he acts on. I gotta have this, I gotta have that. I'm gonna rob this and rob that and steal this and steal that to get that. The goal of any thief is just to get what it is they want. wealthy people are not out robbing nobody. Unless you're talking about these blue-collar people, the Monsantos of the world, and, you know, the big bankers that are ripping you off with interest rates, and we could go down that list of rich people ripping you off. I'm talking about just the guy who has established some wealth, that doesn't have a care in the world, and has no need for anybody's shit. They can buy whatever they want. You see? So crime is a means to an end. Unless you're a white mass murderer, black people are not out mass murdering people. We simply don't do that. The white mass murderers are white people. You see? And so that would be a psychological and inherent trait in them. It is an attribute. You understand? But when you have the aberratic, or the aberratic, I don't know if that's how you conjugate that word. When you have the aberration, is what I'm trying to say, individual that goes out and just kills a bunch of people, there's either somebody snapped because somebody pissed them off. Remember the postal shootings? Those were not mass killers. They were just over them bitches at their job. Don't start none, won't be none. They were over those bitches at their job, and damn it, now they've got to pay. And here I go with my whatever to take them all out. It's where we got the saying going postal. So this brother is a product of an environment that has beat him and his DNA in his body and his people down before he even came to be a sperm drop. Do you understand me? So yes, he is an angel. Damn it. Damn it. Now, I'm going to take us through this video because it is the quintessence, really, to show the treatment of African men in this country in general. So that even though it's dealing with the legal system and all that stuff, we extrapolate that to the entire society. I need you to be in that frame of mind. We extrapolate this to the entire society. All the white collusion, all the white injustice, everything that he faces, I don't want you to keep it. I don't want you to keep it just to, oh, it was a legal incident. I want you to extrapolate that to the entire society, because that is what the truth is. That's what the truth is. I want you to notice the collusion. I'll be with you through this, and it's not a long video. I'll be with you through it to help you to highlight the collusion, the hypocrisy, the lying, the deception that comes so easy. You see? And then there's another big point that I'm going to make at one point in this when we get into it. So let's get into this, everybody, because this is the 1980s, but like I say, it's also Botham Jean 2018. It's Tamir Rice. It's Mike Brown. It's Trayvon Martin. It's Alton Sterling. You keep going. Pick a name. It's Sandra Bland. Rika Boyd. Keep going. This is the treatment of African people in this nation. Let us see this now.
Is sentenced to death.
They caught him. They should do away with him.
But just hours before his execution, a new defense team raises doubts about his guilt.
You let the evidence lead you to a suspect. What they did in this case was exactly the opposite.
Evidence destruction, evidence tampering. My client was framed.
I
There's a body on the water.
He was butchered and murdered. Many people proclaim their innocence.
In this case, there are a number of things that stink.
This man is remorseless.
He needs to pay for it with his life.
The electric chair flashed in front of my eyes.
Get a conviction at all costs. Let the truth fall where it may.
Chino Hills is very rural, very peaceful, a lot of horse ranches. We all knew each other. We didn't lock our doors. Just a quaint little community.
The sleepy hamlet of Chino Hills sits nestled below the San Bernardino.
We didn't lock our doors. There's no blacks here. That's the translation.
Mountains, less than 40 miles from Los Angeles. There, Peggy Ryan, a horse trainer, and her husband Doug lived on a ranch with their children, 10-year-old Jessica and 8-year-old Josh. On the night of June 4th, 1983, Josh Ryan's friend Chris Hughes was invited to spend the night.
On a hill overlooking Chino, the scene of a multiple homicide. We have 4 fatal victims. One victim approximately 8 years of age. The eyes are open, however, there is no response.
The next morning, Chris Hughes' father discovered the lifeless bodies of his son Chris, as well as Doug and Peggy Ryan and their daughter Jessica. Among the carnage, first responders also found 8-year-old Josh Ryan. He was...
I didn't want to break it there. You heard the helicopter person say, or dispatch person say, their eyes are open but they're not moving. Remember the video that I did for you about death and dying, what we know as Muslims in Islam? That's when you see your soul. You understand? I'll just take it back a skosh because I think that was, I just can't let that go past.
Approximately 8 years of age. The eyes are open, however, there is no response.
The next morning, Chris Hughes' father discovered the lifeless bodies of his son Chris, as well as Doug and Peggy Ryan and their daughter Jessica. Among the carnage, first responders also found 8-year-old Josh Ryan. He was still breathing, but barely. He was immediately airlifted to a nearby hospital.
By the way, I believe this is Susan Sarandon that is doing the commentary on this, the narration.
I first arrived with Sheriff Lloyd Tidwell. Each of the victims had a combination of hatchet and knife wounds. This was such a brutal crime.
The severity of the crime puts it on another level. I think we'd be lying if we didn't say that.
We were trying to figure out a motive for these killings and couldn't come up with anything. Nothing made sense.
We heard there had been a murder up on the hill. As a community, our hearts grieved for these people. They're horse people. They were our people.
How can anybody do this? It just doesn't make sense. They were the type of people no one could ever hate. Ever.
Her eyes aren't red and we see no tears. I just thought it'd be interesting to note that.
Our people.
How can anybody do this? It just doesn't make sense. They were the type of people no one could ever hate. Ever.
On the same day the bodies were found, a Chino Hills resident stumbled onto another discovery. One of the murder weapons lying on the side of the road.
The hatchet had the victim's blood on it.
Notice the red sleeve. That becomes important later. It's an outdoor picture of this hatchet.
But it didn't have any fingerprints on it.
Nearby, a tan, blood-stained T-shirt was also found.
Slide him out a little bit.
As the search continued, police received a tip from the Ryans' next-door neighbor, Larry Lease.
Mr. Lease said, "I think you might be interested in seeing my rental house."
The rental house, supposedly unoccupied at the time of the murders, held a major piece of evidence: a sheath that fit the axe used in the murders.
Now, you see that?
Your piece of evidence.
You just saw it in the ditch with this red handle on it. Now it's there on the carpet. Oh my God. Let us go on.
A sheath that fit the axe used in the murders.
We knew that whoever had been in the Lease house committed the murders at the Ryan house. And in the closet, we found a small box of prison-issue tobacco from Chino Institution for Men. We checked with prison authorities, got names of any individuals that escaped within the past week. All of a sudden, we had a suspect, Kevin Cooper.
Just 2 days before the murders, 25-year-old Kevin Cooper.
Kevin Cooper.
Just 2 days before the murders, 25-year-old Kevin Cooper had escaped from the California Institution for Men, a prison just 5 miles from the Ryans' home. Police believed Cooper hid at the Lease house before killing the Ryans and Chris Hughes. With Cooper still at large, San Bernardino County Sheriff Floyd Tidwell took to the airwaves.
We have evidence in our possession that places Kevin Cooper at the crime scene. And we have other evidence that gives us cause to believe that Kevin Cooper was responsible for the murders.
Police patrolled on both sides of the California-Mexico border today, seeking the escaped convict Kevin Cooper.
Tidwell launched one of the largest manhunts in state history, circulating photos of Cooper and the Ryan stolen station wagon.
There is growing fear in the California community of Chino.
I want to know what the state officials are going to do.
Meanwhile, you haven't seen no black folks yet in this entire report, except for Kevin Cooper. This is 1983. Let's go on.
As pressure mounted to apprehend Cooper, police caught a break.
We recovered the Ryan station wagon from a church parking lot in Long Beach. Cooper had used that car to escape.
For District Attorney Kottmeyer, the motive behind the murders was now clear.
Cooper's motive was to get the hell out of Chino Hills. If he had to kill people to cover his escape, then he would.
The killer seemed to be within reach. But then, the trail went cold. On July 30th, 1983, almost 2 months after the brutal murders, the U.S. Coast Guard responded to a distress call near Santa Barbara. They arrived at a sailboat moored in a small marina, the scene of an alleged rape.
When they got in the sheriff's station, the victim of the rape was walking by the wanted posters and saw Cooper's wanted picture and said, "Oh my God, I've been raped by Kevin Cooper."
Kevin Cooper escaped an almost 2-month-long murder manhunt, and police caught him trying to swim away from the scene of an alleged rape.
The rape allegation was never pursued because Cooper now faced...
This is random as shit. I love the shit out of his fucking afro. Can I just add that for the record?
Kevin Cooper escaped...
Like, that's everything. And I also appreciate, and maybe it's just out of ignorance and naivete, but he's just kind of just traipsing out like it's nothing. Watch it.
An almost 2-month-long murder manhunt, and police caught him trying to swim away from the scene of an alleged rape.
Watch. The brother is just... I can't. Watch. chewing gum
The
like
rape
it's
allegation
nothing.
was never pursued because Cooper now faced 4 counts of first-degree murder.
That afro is on point, so I'm saying. On point. Understand that.
Each carrying the death penalty. When Cooper was returned...
See? Look. 1983. Same people. They don't change. They don't change. They don't. So African people, stop trying to tiptoe around and change and ingrace yourself and look less threatening. Fuck all that. The same demon we encountered in goddamn the 1400s is the same motherfucker in 2018, and you need to be clear about that shit. Let us go on. You see? Why does it have to be all this? We never put up these signs when they were finding John Wayne Gacy and, you know, and the Pentagon Killer and the Night Stalker and fucking Jeffrey Dahmer and shit. We just sit back and say that's just white folks doing the shit that they normally do. But this, they always look for an outlet for what is their true hatred. You see? Hang the nigger. That cannot go past undealt with. I had to point that out.
San Bernardino, racial tensions boiled
Look,
over.
And here they come immediately. You see what I'm saying? That's why we need to... I will get to that in another video. Let us go on. But here they come with all they shit. Mind you, you ain't seen no black folks in this bitch the entire time. We're nearly 8 minutes in.
Local authorities say they received several calls from outraged residents who demanded Cooper be sent to the gas chamber.
They caught him. They should do away with him.
We're seeking...
Look, they caught him. They should do away with him in her fucking southern hat, and she's probably sipping a mint julep.
Received several calls from outraged residents who demanded Cooper be sent to the gas chamber.
They caught him. They should do away with him.
We're seeking the death penalty as we have all along.
And no different than him that just spoke. The bitch with the fucking southern hat, the police, and the motherfuckers standing out there with swastika flags. They're all one. O-N-E, one. Let us go on.
Cooper's trial began on October 23, 1984.
I cross-examined Cooper for a day and a half. Cooper said, yeah, I was at the Lee's house, but I never went up to the Ryan house. It wasn't me. Must have been somebody else that did this.
Kottmeyer countered Cooper's testimony by showing the jury the hatchet sheath found in the Lee's house and a bloody footprint found in the Ryan's bedroom.
In the folds of that sheet was a half-bloody footprint. Now those soles were unique, and we were able to determine that the shoe print was made by a prison-issue Pro-Ked.
Now they call it a Chuck Taylor and sells you for a whole fucking bunch of money. It's the same goddamn shoe. And they got the same damn shoe print. Let us go on.
Tennis shoe.
Prison
Blood
issue.
found at the murder
scene. Hear that clearly again.
Made by a prison-issue Pro-Ked footprint. Now those soles were unique, and we were able to determine that the shoe print was made by a prison-issue Pro-Ked tennis shoe.
Blood found at the murder scene also led back to Cooper.
A41 was a single drop of blood in the hallway, and Cooper matched it.
Finally, Kottmeyer played the emotional videotape testimony of the lone survivor, Josh Ryan.
Have you tried to forget what happened that night?
Yeah.
What have you done to try and forget it?
It kept me thoughts.
Cooper's defense would argue that the police mishandled evidence and the investigation. But after 7 days of deliberations, the jury found Kevin Cooper guilty on all...
Look, now we see one black person who we know was bullied by the other white jurors.
There is no question, there is no doubt about the guilt of Kevin Cooper.
See how he says it? There is no question, there is no doubt about the guilt of Kevin Cooper. Here, the language there. Because in his mind, this is a black face. He's absolutely guilty. Won't give a fuck if we had any evidence or not. That's what that translates to. I want you to hear that again. Because we hear that all the time. That exact line of words. Hear it.
The jury found Kevin Cooper guilty on all counts.
There is no question, there is no doubt about the guilt of Kevin Cooper. The only justice in this case is for Kevin Cooper to face his maker and then spend the rest of his days in hell.
We, the jury of the above entitled cause, determine that the penalty shall be death.
Kevin Cooper would spend the next 2 decades on death row. By 2003, Kevin Cooper had lost all his appeals for the 1983 murders of the Ryan family and Chris Hughes.
This beautiful brother, young, and we see his graduation in age in this photograph. But he is the face of hundreds of thousands of young African brothers who did not get a chance to come to this fruition in freedom. Let us go on.
With his time running out, and Cooper still professing his innocence, the case came to the attention of the high-powered law firm Orrick, Harrington and Sutcliffe.
High-powered.
Norm Heil was part of a team that fought death penalty cases on a pro bono basis.
One thing I've learned in now 25 years of representing people on death row, you're going to be fighting an uphill battle, and to have a client whose life is in the balance is a very heavy burden.
Jedi, what sayest thou about this white man who is for free, pro bono, representing our brother? I have 3 words. Act of God. Let us go on.
What Heil could not dispute was Cooper's criminal history, his escape from prison, and his proximity to the murders.
I lived on the main streets of Pittsburgh when I was growing up. I became a car thief. I landed in the California institution.
See? I was on the streets of Pittsburgh. I became a car thief. Became. What I say to you in my opening. Became a car thief. You see? Hear him again now. You have to listen.
I lived on the main streets of Pittsburgh when I was growing up. I became a car thief. I landed in the California Institution for Men in 1983 because of a burglary conviction in Los Angeles. I was there a couple months. I was out walking around and there was a hole in the fence and I just ran.
Mr. Cooper started wandering through farms and pastures, areas that were off of the roadways, and ultimately found his way to the lease house.
When I got to the lease house, I called a couple ex-girlfriends, asked them to send me money. I watched TV, ate, tried to figure out what's next. But I did not murder those people.
Cooper said he'd already set out hitchhiking to Mexico by the time the murders took place. He went into hiding when he became the most wanted man in California. Norm Heil hired former FBI agent Tom Parker to look into Cooper's case.
When you're conducting an investigation, especially one as complex as this one, you essentially collect the evidence and let the evidence lead you to a suspect. What they did in this case was exactly the opposite.
You let this evidence lead you to a suspect. What they did was the exact opposite, which is what they always do. I cite for you OJ, the 1990s. Screw that evidence. Who needs that? We know OJ is undeniably and undisputedly guilty. There is no doubt that OJ is guilty. So let us plant this glove and let us sprinkle this blood across the fucking earth to show that OJ is the one that did it. Evidence be damned. Huh? Let's go on.
As word of the murders got out, the sheriff's department learned that Kevin Cooper had escaped, and that started what we refer to in law enforcement as tunnel vision. Sheriff Tidwell held a big press conference. They started with a suspect, and they then started
Sheriff Tidwell
collecting evidence to prove their theory.
But if Kevin Cooper
were to in law enforcement as tunnel vision, that Kevin Cooper had escaped, and that started what we refer to in law enforcement as tunnel vision. Sheriff Tidwell held a big press conference. They started with a suspect, and they then started collecting evidence to prove their theory.
But if Kevin Cooper wasn't the killer, why did the hatchet sheath and the prison-issued tobacco found at Larry Leese's empty home link him to the murders?
A couple of deputies went over to the Lease house, walked through it, and really didn't see anything suspicious.
Went over to the Lease house, walked through it, didn't see anything suspicious.
A day or two later, other deputies were asked to go search the Lease house again.
They were asked to search the Lease house again. Let's get a search warrant for Botham Jean's apartment, the murdered man who did absolutely fucking nothing, instead of the lying, racist white whore that murdered him in his own apartment. Let's get a search warrant for his apartment. Let us go on.
By then, they knew the hatchet had been used in the murders, and they found a sheath to a hand axe laying right out in the middle of the floor in a position that the first deputies walking through the house could not have missed it. They would have had to have been blind to miss that sheath.
And it's red. What color was the mat at the door of Botham Jean? I ask you this now. First deputies walk through. Nope, no bright fucking glow in the red in the daytime red ass sheath. Nope, we don't see nothing. A few days later, other devils go back. Lo and behold, we found it.
Cooper also said that during his 2 days in the house, he smoked multiple cigarettes.
Multiple.
But when the police collected the evidence, they only collected one cigarette butt. And the rest of the cigarette butts somehow disappeared.
He smoked multiple. They found one.
Later on, when they found the Ryan station wagon in Long Beach, the first time it was inspected, there were no cigarette butts.
Inspected the first time, no cigarette butts, the station wagon. But wait, there's more.
The second time, they suddenly found 2 cigarette butts.
Lo and behold, they find 2. Well, go search it again. Maybe something will show up in that ashtray. Do they even put ashtrays in cars anymore, everybody? Is there such thing? I just thought about that. Is there such thing as ashtrays in a car? I'm over it.
Clearly, they had been taken from the hideout house.
And there was the blood evidence connecting Cooper to the murders. This small speck labeled A41. A41 was examined by Sheriff's Department criminalist Daniel Grigonis.
There he is. There's the star. Daniel Grigonis. There he is.
Grigonis was a rookie at the time.
A rookie at the time.
Now, the proper lab procedure is to do blind testing. You test something and you don't know what the other person's blood is, who you're trying to see whether it's that person or not. But Grigonis waited until he had Kevin Cooper's blood type.
Grigonis
waited until he had Kevin Cooper's blood type. You see? He's a rookie even. A criminalist. So, he immediately comes right on in with the collusion. Nobody had to send him a memo. Nobody had to beg him or visit him in the middle of the night. All he had to do was have non-melanated skin and he'll go right along with the crime. 'Cause it's a black man. And you ain't seen no niggas in this bitch The entire time we've been watching, we're 14 and a half minutes in. You saw Kevin Cooper, and you saw one other brother that was either a coon or had been bullied by the white jurors on that fucking jury, if that was the jury they showed filing out. You ain't seen no other black faces. Let us go on. This is 1983.
Originally found A41 did not match Kevin Cooper, but then
originally found it didn't match him, but then
he changed notes.
He changed notes
to show that it did.
That it suddenly did. 'Cause it's a black life and it don't matter. There are millions of their asses that have done this shit over the many centuries and didn't lose a single wink of sleep, never thought about it again. It didn't matter. Let's go on.
So in fact, the testing actually showed that the blood drop was not from somebody with Kevin's blood type.
Was not.
Other evidence prosecutors claimed linked Cooper to the murders was a bloody footprint on the Ryans' bedsheet, supposedly from a prison-issued sneaker.
Kottmeyer claimed that these were tennis shoes that were manufactured and sold only to prisons. In fact, it was
but lo and behold, there is your all-star Chuck Taylor.
A shoe that was readily available, very common tennis shoes with a very common shoe print.
The question now was whether these were innocent mistakes by investigators or something more. Norm Heil was about to learn that before they turned their attention to Cooper, police had been given other solid leads, including from the sole survivor.
Including from the sole survivor. They were given leads. Hear this.
8-year-old Josh Ryan was able to communicate to staff at the hospital that the people who had attacked him and his family were 3 white men. In fact,
were 3 white men.
A picture of Kevin Cooper was on television, and he looked up and he said, "That's not the one who did it."
Think about it. Little white kid looks up and says, "That's not the one who did it."
Kevin Cooper had been on death row for nearly 20 years when attorney Norm Heil began looking into his case.
20 years before these people even began looking into his case, because, you know, he's not the only case, and then and so forth. But still, 20 years of your fucking life. 20 years. I can't. I'm happy to go to jail for some shit I did. You put me in jail for some shit I didn't do. If I get out, I'm killing everybody. Goddamn it, everybody's got to go. So I'm saying, I'll be the only motherfucker left on the earth. Trust and believe. Like, everyone must go. Do you understand? Damn it.
Heil felt the evidence against Cooper, the cigarette butts in the Ryan car, the bloody shoe print on the Ryans' bed, even the blood testing, all had flaws. But Heil's biggest question involved motive, and the prosecution's claim that Cooper had killed the Ryans in order to steal their station wagon.
The problem with this theory is that if somebody such as Kevin Cooper had wanted to make an escape, they missed the fact that there was cash, credit cards, and other valuables left at the scene of the crimes.
Bingo. You just escaped from prison because you found a hole in the gate and you go to steal somebody's shit, you taking everything. Because if you're going to take the car, you're going to need some cash. Prisoners aren't just walking around with cash. I understand that.
None of that was taken. If Mr. Cooper has walked away from the prison, obviously with no money, all of it was right there for him to take, and it was not touched.
Heil also disputed the prosecution's theory that the killer worked alone. The sheer number of wounds suffered by the victims, 140 in all, and the fact that Doug Ryan was an ex-Marine with loaded guns in the bedroom suggested to Heil that there had been more than one killer. For a time, San Bernardino police apparently agreed with that conclusion.
The sheriff's department was told by 2 different bystanders that the night of the murders, around the time that the murders had occurred, they had seen a car that matched the description of the Ryan station wagon speeding down the road from the Ryan's house, and that in that car were white men.
Think about it. Think about it. Loma, goddammit,
As
Linda.
it turned out, Josh Ryan, the sole survivor of the attacks, also reported seeing multiple intruders. Deputy Dale Sharp interviewed Josh Ryan just hours after he was rushed to the hospital.
It wasn't good. He had at least one hatchet wound to his head, and he had had his throat slit.
Josh was unable to speak, so Deputy Sharp devised another method of communication.
He would squeeze my hand for a yes and no squeeze for a no. I took his hand and let him know that I was his friend the best I could. We talked about baseball and got him comfortable with me. I would ask, do you remember anything? And I would get a hand squeeze, yes. Can you remember anyone coming to your house? Yes. We ended up with 3 Mexican guys, or maybe 3 white guys. I asked, were these 3 men there when things went crazy? And the answer was yes.
Now you got the kid saying it. And now and then this was, I guess this was before that happened, before he was able to speak. Then this was when he was just like squeezing and like, yeah. But we still don't have that it's a black man. We have at least 3 Mexicans or 3 whites, but it's 3 people, not Kevin Cooper. But let's go on.
Based on this information, police released this bulletin 2 days after the murders. But by the time of the trial, Josh Ryan had changed his...
Suspect described as either white or Mexican males, plural. Suspects, plural. Let's go back a skosh and hear that lead in.
The answer was yes.
Based on this information, police released this bulletin 2 days after the murders.
A bulletin.
But by the time of the trial, Josh Ryan had changed his story.
When Josh was pressed to what he had seen, he is very specific. He only saw one person that had very bushy, fuzzy hair.
Did you see what that shadow by the bathroom was doing?
No.
How many shadows did you see? Just the one?
Deputy Sharp saw nothing suspicious about Josh Ryan's changing story.
Victim interviews can change, especially with an 8-year-old boy.
Nah, bite my ass. This is what they always do. It's psychological mind fuck. You see something and go, well, that's not what you saw. Oh, Rodney King's not getting beat within an inch of his life. He's actually rising in frames 4, 3, and 8. He's actually rising. Look, he's looking like he's going to attack the officer. He's right. No, bitch. No, fuck you. So that's the only people that change fucking reality is these people. He's the one that interviewed the kid. The kid is in an inch of his death. He has to squeeze his hand to answer. And now he says this. Hear this.
Changing story.
Victim interviews can change, especially with an 8-year-old boy. You don't know what he's seen. You don't know what he remembers.
An 8-year-old is not the same as a 3-year-old. You want to tell me it's a 3-year-old? We could look at it and talk about it. Don't give me an 8-year-old doesn't know what the fuck he saw and heard. Look at this kid.
Have you seen those before?
Based on my 30-plus years experience in law enforcement, the initial comments of eyewitnesses are usually the most accurate.
Amen. Done. Your first mind is your most accurate mind. Period. The end. Period. Don't let nobody ever tell you anything different, everybody. Because that's why when you have a major event happen and there's many witnesses on the scene, when law enforcement shows up, the first thing they do is separate everybody. Because they don't want your story influencing the other person's. You see? They separate you. Because then we look at all the interviews and say, okay, all the witnesses are saying X, Y, and Z. And you draw parallels between everything they said individually. You see? It's only when they want to install deception and demonry is when they give you this bullshit. Well, you just don't know. When people say the first time, it's not really what they saw. We just no, fuck that. Your first mind is your right mind. Always remember that.
There's a very strong possibility that Josh was coached.
Norman Heil now felt he had enough evidence to successfully fight for Kevin's life. But as he prepared his appeals, yet another witness came forward, fully 20 years after the crime.
Yet another witness, fully 20 years after the crime. That bitch should be jailed. Unless she's got a very good reason why she didn't come forward. Because it was in the press, there was bulletins, there was all this media attention, and you wait 20 years? Unless you can show us that you were paraplegic from then until now, I'm arresting your ass and putting you under a cement block under the jail. Because there has to be, to me, that's obstructing justice during and after the fact. Obstruction of justice during and after the fact, causing loss of freedom to another human being. That's the charge. That's the charge. Write it.
I hear on the TV set that they're going to put Kevin Cooper to death. And I went, are you kidding me?
Wait now. All the looking around. I can't, dude. God knows how long this trial has been going on. Like, we'd have to go back to add up the time frame now because, you know, they've been giving us dates along the way. But now it's at he's being put to death, and now she's looking around this fucking clearly Marlboro smoking ass bitch. Okay, throw in the crystal meth too. They're fine. Now watch.
And I went.
But I gotta hear the lead in. I turn on the TV like it's some new ancient case. Wait, I can't.
I hear on the TV set.
I hear on the TV set
that they're going to put Kevin Cooper to death. And I went, are you kidding me?
Now it's too much for her. He's been languishing in prison for 20 years. Now it's too much. Look at the look on her face. I can't.
On the night of the murders, Christine Sloniker was eating at the Canyon Corral, a local country western bar just 2 miles from the Ryans' home.
As we were eating, in through the back swinging doors of the kitchen come these 3 guys.
Hear this, everybody, because this is the quintessence of, you see melanated skin, everything is goddamn suspect. But all this shit she's about to describe, and it's no problem. Hear this.
I noticed that one of them was covered in blood. Not just little spots. This was like someone had taken a paintbrush and went.
Now, that's significant. Because I've pointed out to you in previous work that white folks, when they say covered in blood, you can ignore that normally. 99% of the time, ignore that shit. That means 1 spot of blood. She went so far as to say, I don't mean just a speck of blood. I mean it looked like somebody took a paintbrush and went whoosh. You see? I ask you now, where could 3 black men walk into? Well, there are white people, certainly. And they're covered in blood. And it's nothing. Wait, before you answer that, I remind you that 2 brothers can't even walk into a Starbucks with no blood on them and have the fucking cops called on them. Let us continue.
Come these 3 guys. I noticed that one of them was covered in blood.
Covered?
Not just little spots. This was like someone had taken a paintbrush and went like this. It was splattered everywhere. Their feet were sticking to the floor. They were so inundated with blood.
Their feet were sticking to the floor. They were so inundated with blood. But go on. And they're not asked to leave. They're not asked to leave. Let's go on.
At the time, we didn't know about the murder, and we just thought, well, I don't know what they've been doing.
We didn't know about the murder, so we just went, I don't know what they've been doing.
Slaughtering pigs or what?
Slaughtering pigs or what? And certainly they didn't murder anybody because they're white. Covered in blood, sticking to the floor in a damn bar, and it's no problem. Wow.
They were so inundated with blood. At the time, we didn't know about the murder, and we just thought, well, I don't know what they've been doing, slaughtering pigs or whatever. But we're out of here.
Sloniker never reported the incident because she claimed a uniformed sheriff's deputy was at the bar that night, and she assumed he would follow up.
A uniformed sheriff was at the bar that night. Uniformed. But she assumed he would follow up. Let's go on.
In 2004, Norm Heil fought for a new trial for Kevin Cooper in front of U.S. District Court Judge Marilyn Huff in San Diego. In his appeal, Heil presented Christine Sloniker's testimony, and to his surprise, the state responded by inadvertently revealing a previously unknown piece of evidence provided by a woman named Laurel Epler, who lived near the Canyon Corral bar.
Here was a log that shows that Laurel Epler called into the sheriff's department the day after the murders, saying she had found a short-sleeved blue shirt that she thought had blood on it on the road near the Canyon Corral bar. One of the bar employees testified that one of the men in the bar that night might have had on a blue shirt. The criminal bulletin showed that they were looking for 3 white men, and one of them was wearing a blue shirt.
Heil would argue that the neighbor's eyewitness testimony, along with the testimony of Christine Sloniker and Josh Ryan's original account, all pointed to 3 suspects. And in the new documents released by the prosecution, Heil was about to discover the name of one of the 3 suspects. And that man also happened to be a convicted murderer. While he fought for a new trial for Kevin Cooper in front of Judge Marilyn Huff, attorney Norm Heil discovered evidence that put a name to an alternate suspect.
The night of the crimes, a woman named Diana Roper had seen her boyfriend, a man named Lee Furrow, drive up to their house in the wee hours of the morning.
Lee Furrow comes rushing into the house wearing coveralls splattered with what looks to be spots of blood. He changes clothes and turns around and leaves. There were other people in the house, and someone looked out the window and saw a white station wagon matching the Ryans parked in the driveway with other individuals in that car.
Diana Roper called the sheriff's department, and she gave them the coveralls. The bloody coveralls that they recovered were booked into evidence.
When Diana Roper later learned that a hatchet was used in the murders, she again called police.
6/9/1983.
Booked into evidence.
When Diana
6/9/83.
Roper later learned that a hatchet was used in the murders, she again called police and said...
Now the same chick that's called about the overalls is now again calling the police to say what?
Said that Lee Furrow's hatchet was missing from his tool belt.
It would make sense that somebody like Lee Furrow would have killed the Ryans. He was a convicted murderer. He had strangled to death a young woman and thrown her body into a canal.
He looks like Jack Black.
But San Bernardino police waited 11 months. But San Bernardino...
A young
Come on, y'all know that's Jack Black. Stop it. Stop it. Y'all know that's Jack Black.
body into a canal.
But San Bernardino police waited 11 months before questioning Lee Furrow. And when they did, they never asked him about his missing axe.
11 months. And then they don't ask him about the fucking...
They also seemed to accept Furrow's word that he didn't own any overalls.
Even though his girlfriend is the one that called us and gave him the overalls. Nope, I don't own the overalls, but that was good enough for them, because what? He's white.
Tom Parker thinks he knows why.
The coverall.
The same evidence on a black man, they would say that, what? There is a mountain of evidence. This is the terminology. A mountain of evidence, they would say. That would be the wording.
To accept Furrow's word that he didn't own any overalls. Tom Parker thinks he knows why.
The coveralls, in fact, had been destroyed. A deputy had taken them and thrown them in a dumpster behind the sheriff's department to get rid of them because it was unfounded that they were connected to the case.
Collusion. Collusion. And what did Michael and Janet tell us? With such collusion, don't it make you wanna scream? Make you wanna scream. You're batch abused and victimized within the scheme. You try to cope with every lie they scrutinize. Somebody please have mercy, 'cause I just can't take this. Stop pressuring me, and so forth. Collusion, bitches. White collusion, goddammit. Collusion. Collusion.
Of course, there had never been any blood testing or whatever to come to that conclusion.
Heil now raised this destruction of evidence with Judge Huff.
In a criminal prosecution, the prosecution is required to turn over to the defense any evidence that might be considered exonerating.
And when they don't?
It's a rule. If the prosecution doesn't do it, then they have committed what is called a Brady violation.
A Brady violation.
And the trial must be reversed.
Trial must be reversed.
And a new trial given.
When the prosecution doesn't show you all the shit that they have, goddammit, they're in violation.
The tennis shoe situation, the blue shirt and the bloody coveralls.
The tennis shoes are an issue, are a Brady violation, because they said that it's only sold to prisons. But then we realized, no, it's in mass availability to anybody in the damn general public. And then he's citing the blue shirt.
We're all...
And the overalls.
Brady violations, and we put on evidence as to all of those.
I want you to hear him and not me.
Doesn't do it, then they have committed what is called a Brady violation, and the trial must be reversed and a new trial given. The tennis shoe situation, the blue shirt and the bloody coveralls were all Brady violations, and we put on evidence as to all of those. Judge Huff rejected it.
Now, the judge rejected it. So you got the cops that go to the scene. White collusion. No evidence found. They go back, plant evidence, go back again and go, oh, look, we found it. Then all the way out in another state, or another part of the California, I think it was, they find the station wagon. Nope, no evidence here of cigarettes. Oh, we go back and search it again, and lo and behold, there's cigarettes. White collusion. In different places, at different times. You understand? They'll just do it. They will just do it. Do you understand? Now, then you had the jury stacked with not people of his peers, but more white people in an all-white courtroom with a white judge and everything else. Now this guy comes along and shows, just forget the discrepancy in the evidence, just even these Brady violations, which are 3 separate offenses, but each one on their own would be enough to reverse the trial. Here they present this judge with 3, and the bitch turns it down. White collusion. With such collusion, don't it make you wanna scream? Make you wanna scream. You're batch abused and victimized within the scheme. You try to cope with every lie they scrutinize. Somebody please have mercy, 'cause I just can't take this. Hang the nigger, said the sign. Find something in Botham's apartment. Damn it, he had marijuana.
Brady violations, and we put on evidence as to all of those. Judge Huff rejected it.
Kevin Cooper was running out of time, so his defense team reached out to a new potential advocate, San Francisco Chronicle columnist Deborah Saunders.
As a supporter of the death penalty, I wouldn't want to see an innocent man executed, would I? So if there's a hint that somebody who's not guilty might be executed, I want to know about it. I want to write about it.
Does she really? Does she really? Let's go on.
My editorial board at the San Francisco Chronicle.
This is her editorial, reasonable doubts, and she's chronologizing the case and why it's all bullshit, and Kevin Cooper's probably not innocent, and da 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 da.
Wrote an editorial saying, gee, maybe Kevin Cooper is an innocent man. The defense attorneys laid out this case about how this man had been unjustly convicted.
Cooper's defense told Saunders that for years they'd been unsuccessful in petitioning the courts for newly available DNA testing, which could exonerate Cooper.
Kevin Cooper kept saying, I'm not guilty, do DNA testing now that you can do it. If it shows that I'm guilty, then you can go ahead and execute me. I walked out of there thinking, whoa, they've really made a case I've got to think about.
San Bernardino's current district attorney, Michael Ramos, was handling Cooper's appeals.
District Attorney Ramos was handling the appeals. Here's your first Latino. And we use that word very, very carefully. Very carefully. See this now. You can look at his face and already know. You already know it's some bullshit. But let's go on.
We felt that the ongoing request by defense counsel in this case, which...
The ongoing request by defense counsel, the people that's trying to defend this man, were what?
Just another delay tactic.
Delay tactic. A delay tactic, said the Ramos Latino. Let's go on.
There was no evidence at all that...
No evidence at all!
Anybody but Kevin Cooper committed these horrendous murders.
That nobody but Kevin committed these murders. No evidence at all was his language. At all! And we've already seen several witnesses and several pieces of evidence and sketchy evidence as well. But he sits down and says through his fucking Ramos face, there's no evidence at all. When their own bulletin from law enforcement said three suspects, either Mexican or white, but no evidence at all. Hear his vomit again, and let's go on.
Ongoing request by defense counsel in this case.
And then the sarcasm with the ongoing request by defense counsel in this case.
Was just another delay tactic. There was no evidence at all that anybody but Kevin Cooper committed these horrendous murders.
And then he goes home and eats his tortas, and he's happy, and drinks tequila.
None.
But in the early 2000s, new legislation in California would grant Kevin Cooper the right to DNA testing.
All these years that my case was in the appeals courts, I never got a fair hearing. I was always get denied for one reason or the next. So I felt very bad.
One reason or the next. Being black and being black.
Very discouraged until DNA testing came along, and I had a shot.
The state would perform DNA tests on blood sample A41, taken from the Ryans' hallway, and blood on the tan shirt thought to have been thrown from their stolen station wagon. The results would determine whether Kevin Cooper lived or died. Preliminary results showed that the blood from the Ryans' hallway and on the tan t-shirt both came from the same person. That DNA profile was then compared to Kevin Cooper's.
The analysis regarding this was 100%, beyond a shadow of a doubt. Kevin Cooper was in that house and bled at that crime scene.
One thing I can tell you is about Latinos, when they come here, especially if they're going to be in politics or law enforcement, they are worse than the devil. Do you understand? Worse than. Worse than. They buy it. They buy into all this shit. They buy into it. They buy into it. Even when I was a corrections officer, my senior captain was a Latino. Do you understand? And, you know, just other observations throughout various, you know, jobs and careers and stuff that I've had and stuff like that. The worst. The worst. The worst. The worst. And he represents that in this piece because he's in law enforcement. He's the district attorney. So he thinks he's probably going to be governor or mayor or some bullshit. And his, you know, he's lost his hair because he's stressed at night. His kids hate him. And his wife is threatening to divorce him. And all because he's seeking power. That's it. This is 1983. And remember, you haven't seen any black people. And he's the first Latino. Let's go on.
It really verified what you knew all along, that Kevin Cooper committed these horrendous murders.
Only...
It verified what we knew all along, he said out of his fucking face.
1 out of 300 billion people could have matched A41. You could go to galaxies far beyond the stars and still not find the match for A41 that Cooper supplies.
Now, he's the former district attorney. Ramos was the district attorney.
Once the DNA tests put Kevin Cooper and the home he said he never went into, and on a t-shirt with Doug Ryan's...
Look, she's ready to turn. She's ready to turn.
...blood on it. That was it for him.
That was it. Now she's ready to type the flim-flam defense. And now she's attacking. When she put out her whole column to defend him, now she's immediately turncoat. Not a don't say shit or let's wait and see. No, she couldn't wait to get her white ass right back there because she didn't want to believe in a black man to begin with. Let's go on.
Deborah Saunders, once convinced of Cooper's innocence, now published scathing articles in the San Francisco Chronicle about Kevin Cooper's guilt. The DNA results and this new press attention had backfired on Cooper's defense.
To Kevin Cooper's shock and the defense's shock, the testing came back saying that there was Kevin's DNA on A41.
But for Heil, the DNA results raised a red flag.
Back in 1983, the lab technician, Daniel Kogonis, said...
Back in 1983, the lab, what's his fucking official title? The lab, what?
DNA results raised a red flag.
Back in 1983, the lab technician... Daniel Kogonis had testified that he had consumed A41 during his testing.
He testified... In other words, to consume it, that means the sample that we had was consumed by all the testing. That means there's none left. It's all gone. All of it was consumed in testing. Hear this now.
The lab technician, Daniel Kogonis, had testified that he had consumed A41 during his testing. Now,
he consumed it.
Now Kogonis was asked to make sure that A41 still existed.
Now he was asked to make sure that it still existed.
We have a photograph of the envelope that shows the date that he took it out and when he resealed it. So we know that he had A41 on his person for 24 hours before he returned it.
We know that he had A41 on his person for 24 hours before he returned it. We know that Van Adder took blood out to fucking OJ's house and to the crime scene. Is anybody seeing a pattern here?
So we know that he had a 41 on his person for 24 hours before he returned it.
I wonder where he went.
He also had nearby in the lab the vial of Kevin Cooper's blood that was taken from him when he was arrested.
Contrary to Grigonis's original testimony, the state now reported there was enough of A41 for additional DNA testing.
Now the state's saying, look, lo and behold, there is some of it, and there's enough for testing even. Huh? This is why you don't ever let these motherfuckers take your blood. Give a fuck. You understand? I don't give a damn what you gotta go through. You do not let them take your blood. You understand? And if you end your bitch ass up in court, you tell the judge, because I can show cases where the blood has been used to incriminate people. I'm not letting you have my fucking blood. Be damned. Do you understand? Now, lo and behold, that we do have it, and there's enough to test. It's a miracle.
Of Kevin Cooper's blood that was taken from him when he was arrested.
Contrary to Grigonis's original testimony, the state now reported there was enough of A41 for additional DNA testing. Results from the tan t-shirt also changed drastically. At the original trial, the t-shirt was only shown to have Doug Ryan's blood on it.
When the t-shirt was tested at this time, there was additional blood located on the upper part of the t-shirt across the chest that had not been noticed or photographed or even reported previous to this time.
Cooper's defense argued that the new blood on the t-shirt and the newly discovered blood found on A41 could only have come from one place, the vial of Cooper's blood that lab technician Daniel Grigonis had access to. The defense would strengthen that assertion by taking the vial of Cooper's blood to an independent lab for analysis.
Now the defense takes the vial of Cooper's blood to an independent lab for testing.
It was discovered that the vial of Kevin Cooper's blood contained two different blood types.
Sample was mixed with two or more mitochondrial DNA types.
Discovered that the vial of Kevin Cooper's blood contained two different blood types and two different DNA types, indicating without any doubt that additional blood from another person had been poured into Cooper's vial.
Suddenly we've got more blood to test it because you filled it up with other blood.
The likelihood is that they poured somebody else's blood into it after they poured blood onto A41 and the t-shirt.
When they went out to the scene and poured it on it, just like Van Adder did to OJ.
Much like when teenagers drink their parents' alcohol, in order to conceal that, they have to fill that bottle back up with something else.
Cooper and his team eventually brought their claims of blood tampering to Judge Marilyn Huff, requesting that Daniel Grigonis be called to testify.
They go back to Judge Huff, demanding that this lab tech be called to testify. Wait.
But, as in previous petitions, Judge Huff denied all of their requests.
Denied. So I ask you, my people, at one point are you supposed to stop being peaceful and waiting on justice and act out what is righteous justice? If you can't give me justice, then I must take it. You understand?
Requesting that Daniel Grigonis be called to testify. But, as in previous petitions, Judge Huff denied all of their requests. After more than 20 years on death row and numerous failed appeals, the courts now set Kevin Cooper's execution date for February 10th, 2004. By this time, news of the controversy surrounding Kevin's case had become widespread.
People who care start not only seeing the evidence and learning about the evidence, but they decided they were not going to let these people murder me.
Because that was 1983. And now it's 2004. And there's a little thing called the internet. You understand? And access to information. So they were able to do their little shit quietly back in 1983. But now, boom, people know about it in 2004. Will it matter?
Case had become widespread.
People who care start not only seeing the evidence and learning about the evidence, but they decided they were not going to let these people murder me without exposing the truth.
No fact will change Kevin Cooper's groupies. They're being spoon-fed this story that doesn't hold up. And the Kevin Cooper legal team knew how to play that.
You had those opposed to the death penalty saying this execution should be stayed. He's an innocent man.
Ramos said he wants to bring closure to the victims' families. He doesn't want to bring them truth. He wants to bring them closure, which is two different things.
But while the court of public opinion may have turned in Kevin's favor, his defense team was running out of options.
We were working against the clock. We had to file up to the California Supreme Court saying that Kevin had been denied his rights and that the prosecution had been improper.
Cooper's arguments hinged on accusations of planted evidence and alternate suspects who were never pursued. Cooper also appealed to Governor Schwarzenegger for
Wait for it.
clemency.
He appealed to Schwarzenegger for clemency.
For the clemency petition, a number of the jurors came forward and then said they were very uncomfortable now that they had learned about all the things that had surfaced.
Now you have jurors coming forward saying, wait, if we had known more about what we know now, we would have had a different understanding.
Since the trial, Peggy Ryan's sister even wrote a letter to the governor saying that she believed that Kevin was not the killer and that they should not execute him.
Now even the sister of one of the victims is saying, There he is, the Terminator. How fitting.
10 days before the execution, Governor Schwarzenegger made his decision.
Arnold Schwarzenegger has made his first live-or-die decision as California governor. He rejected pleas to spare the life of a convicted killer.
Rejected. Rejected. Because it's a black man. And even Schwarzenegger knows that black life don't matter. And I believe he was already married to Maria Shriver at that point, too. Interesting.
Arnold Schwarzenegger has made his first live-or-die decision as California governor. He rejected pleas to spare the life of a convicted killer.
He said that Kevin was clearly guilty and should be executed. A few days.
He said that Kevin was clearly guilty. Schwarzenegger's not a lawyer. He's not a magistrate. He's not a judge. And I'm sure he didn't look over the case. Oh, he's clearly guilty. Clearly. Really? What knowledge do you have to back up the word clearly?
He said that Kevin was clearly guilty and should be executed.
Clearly.
A few days before the execution date, the California Supreme Court denied our request for a stay of the execution and for...
Now the Supreme Court denies you. When are you supposed to take it?
For the chance to file further appeals in Kevin's case.
It's important you hear that, because I don't want to...
San Quentin guard
should be executed.
Wait.
A few days before the execution date, the California Supreme Court denied our request for a stay of the execution and for the chance to file further appeals in Kevin's case.
San Quentin guards now escorted Kevin Cooper to a new cell adjacent to the death chamber. Cooper was about to become a dead man walking. Just hours before his midnight execution on February 10, 2004, Kevin Cooper was strip-searched and dressed for the death chamber. But Cooper steadfastly refused to assist in his own execution. Defiantly, he'd begun a hunger strike the week before.
They say death row! We say hell no! Hell no! Hell no!
As midnight approached, a crowd of several hundred demonstrators.
There's the white people with their backpacks. It's always a backpack.
Hell no!
As midnight
There they are.
Approached, a crowd of several hundred demonstrators.
Their backpacks and hoodies. Because they got excited about something on a college campus. You see? But they will be right in those same positions, doing the same oppression to African people, while claiming they don't hate you. Wow.
Gathered outside the prison walls.
We say hell no!
Our lawyers were going to attend, family members were going to attend the execution. Finally, the family was going to have justice.
With just hours to go, a frenzied back and forth was erupting.
This was a political case for him. He knows where his bread and butter is. This is a white family. He will sit his Mexican ass up there and say the fucking sky turned to black. Because this will be a political coup, a political coup for him. I can't with these people. African people need to understand we don't have any friends, we don't have any fucking allies. All we got is posers and traitors. You understand? And the quicker you understand that, the quicker you understand what you need to start doing in life. And how you need to operate in this society. We don't have any allies, and we don't have any fucking friends. Because if we did, shit would have long since changed for us. At the hands of someone else even. And the shit still hasn't happened. The best they can do is come out with fake hoodies and backpacks and yell and scream with you as if they're an ally and shit. And then go back to their lattes and their Starbucks and all of it. Don't fall for the illusion. You understand? And you don't even have to be harsh. You can just say, look, I don't have any friends. Thank you, but no thank you. That's why I tell you we must always look within for everything. Even a drop of water. If you're out on the goddamn highway and your car broke down, goddamn it, fag down somebody black. And don't even take help until it comes from your own. That's what real commitment looks like. That's what it takes.
In the courts.
A three-judge panel of the Ninth.
Our lawyers were going to attend, family members were going to attend the execution. Finally, the family was going to have justice.
With just hours to go, a frenzied back and forth was erupting in the courts.
A three-judge panel of the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals issued an opinion denying a stay of Kevin's execution.
Three-judge panel said, So now you have the Supreme Court, now you got the Court of Appeals. They're saying, White collusion all the way to the top, denying you your life. All of them, any of them, just looked at the paper and saw it was defendant is black and said, fuck no. Not a doubt in my mind. Not a doubt in my mind. Let's go on.
A few hours later, a judge of the Ninth Circuit disagreed.
Now, a few hours later, a judge from the Ninth Circuit, wonder who that was or what they look like. Let's go back.
A few hours later, a judge of the Ninth Circuit disagreed with the three-judge panel. And
disagreed with the three-judge panel. Knew they were fucking lying white liars.
The Ninth Circuit en banc, which met with an 11-judge panel, issued a ruling staying his execution.
Well, you need to hear that legal jargon, so let me just go back and shut up.
denying a stay of Kevin's execution. A few hours later, a judge of the Ninth Circuit disagreed with the three-judge panel, and the Ninth Circuit en banc, which meant with an 11-judge panel, issued a ruling staying his execution.
Staying the execution. Finally. 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 But
though en banc requests are granted less than 1% of the time, the justices reversed the earlier opinion and gave Kevin Cooper a stay. But their decision didn't sit well with California's Attorney General.
now the California Attorney General. Well, that just doesn't sit well with me, because I've got white voters out there, they're going to be pissed at me. And I've got the Confederate flag carriers and the KKK, and they want, goddammit, they want a nigger hung. So this doesn't sit well with the California, what they say the bitch was, goddammit. Damn it, Jedi.
Hey. But their decision didn't sit well with California's Attorney General.
Attorney General.
The Attorney General immediately filed a request of the Supreme Court of the United States to reverse that stay.
Immediately filed. Bitch probably got up in the middle of the night, goddammit. Because they move heaven and earth to do injustice to your black ass, you know that. Oh, all heaven and earth must be moved. All rules must change. Let's go on. Moved quickly to reverse the decision
Of the Supreme Court of the United States to reverse that stay.
At 8:15 p.m., as Kevin Cooper waited for news about his impending execution, a phone rang in the death chamber.
My lawyers told me that the United States Supreme Court, in a unanimous decision, said that I would not be murdered that night.
Now this is where it becomes terrorism, everybody. It's been terror since the moment he was arrested. But this becomes like terrorism tenfold. Because literally, you can't even prepare yourself for death because they're giving you some kind of hope. Every soul, at one point, when you know it's coming, you just go ahead and accept it. You just don't have no other choice. Nowhere else to run. Damn it, I just have to accept it. He's not even given that. He's in the death chamber. And you got white devils denying you still. But you still got these lawyers doing everything they can for you.
United States Supreme Court, in a unanimous decision, said that I would not be murdered that night. I'm beginning to feel life come back into my body, because I honestly thought I was a dead man.
Finding out 4 hours before your client is going to be executed that he's not going to be executed is a tremendous sense of exhilaration, but it's not over. Kevin was not off death row.
2 years after Kevin Cooper's brush with death, a judge imposed a moratorium on the use of lethal injection in California. No one has been executed in the state since 2006. Meanwhile, Kevin Cooper continues to declare his innocence, and though his appeals have all been denied, in 2009 a judge from the Ninth Circuit Court wrote a scathing indictment of the prosecution's case. Dissenting from the majority, Judge William Fletcher wrote, "Cooper is probably innocent of the crimes for which the state of California is about to execute him. If he is innocent, the real killers have escaped. They may kill again. They may already have done so."
His statement was only by an act of God, everybody. We don't interpret that as benevolence and desire to do righteousness. That was an act of God.
Despite conflicting opinions about Cooper's guilt, if and when California resumes executions, Kevin Cooper will be returned to the death chamber.
If he were to be executed, I would still want to prove his innocence, because our system often convicts innocent people, and when you have the ultimate punishment we've got to get another system.
We say the death penalty for the worst of the worst. These people on death row, some of them, I call them monsters. Everybody talks about, the death row inmates and their rights, but people forget about the victims.
Listen, that's one of the big messages that I say to people as someone who is a former corrections officer. 99% of people that are incarcerated are people you would absolutely fall in love with and just want as your best fucking friend. They're not bad people. You see, but someone like Ramos, who may be first generation or whatever, he buys into every fucking thing that comes out of the mouth of white people. And he's been able to lick his way up to the position that he's in as district attorney. And slandering the names of people that are incarcerated. Just because you're incarcerated doesn't mean you have that your name should be slandered. Fuck that. You understand? I'll give a convict a ride before I give somebody else a goddamn ride. How about that? That's real. But I've also said to you that we've seen our history shows that for white people it's never about justice. It's only and always about revenge, just so they can feel better. Just so they can feel better. They don't care who dies. Just so I feel better. And our history is strewn with them just picking us at random, just because they needed a black face. Say, this is the one. We've seen this Kevin Cooper story over and over and over again. So don't act brand new. Because the shit is old. Let's hear the last few seconds of this.
Have the ultimate punishment. We've got to get another system.
We say the death penalty for the worst of the worst. These people on death row, some of them, I call them monsters. Everybody talks about, the death row inmates and their rights, but people forget about the victims and their families and their rights.
This is one of the most heinous crimes imaginable. The defense attorneys like to say, what was his motive? He could have just taken their car and gone. That's true. But he didn't. He killed his family. She's willing to say that, just outright. In spite of the evidence, the money, in spite of all the other shit we've been through in this damn case, she asserts affirmatively that that's not what happened, that he killed them. Crimes imaginable. The defense attorneys like to say, what was his motive? He could have just taken their car and gone. And I love when I hear white people say, the worst crime imaginable. No, bitch. There's never been and never will there be a greater crime than decimation of the African people across this earth by white people. So please don't ever let that come out of your mouth without a qualifier. You should say, after our desecration and continued oppression of African people across this bitch, after that, this is now one of the worst crimes I've ever known about. Use that language. At the very least, it would be accurate historically and currently. Let us go on. This is one of the most heinous crimes imaginable. The defense attorneys like to say, what was his motive? He could have just taken their car and gone. That's true. But he didn't. He killed his family. She just knows it. She was standing there and saw him do it. She was standing there and saw him do it. She saw it.
In 1985, I was escorted to death row here to San Quentin.
25-year-old man. A 25-year-old child, really. You know? He hadn't come into his fruition.
In 1985.
That's the eyes of a boy. Forget the beard, forget the hair. That's a child. That's a child.
I was escorted to death row here at San Quentin prison. And it's like I went to hell. But I am an innocent man. Damn it, I did not murder anyone. I hope people learn from this story that you have to stand up and fight this rotten ass system because it is rotten. It is rotten to the core.
It's rotten to the top.
All of the potential inaccuracies, the potential miscarriages of justice, I can't correct. I can only tell you that personally, I was involved in this case from the very...
Well, it stops there. But he was going to say from the very beginning was Kevin Cooper. Because remember, they can never be wrong. Even when you show them that they are absolutely wrong, they never can accept that. Ever. So see not this case of Kevin Cooper as a historical case from 1983 into the 2000s, and he still lives, I pray Allah. See it as a current event, because it is. This is the Jedi.